Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. So I have a question for you. Do Roth conversions, particularly in the first, say 5 years of retirement, increase your sequence of returns risk? That's the question we're going to tackle in today's show. It came up because a number of you have emailed me about a video on YouTube from another YouTuber. Let me show it to you here. This gentleman is a CFP. I don't know him. His name is Eric Mzalig, and apologies if I've mispronounced his name. In this particular video, it says, give me 82 seconds, you'll avoid Roth conversions forever. And he makes three interesting points in his video. The first is that yes, doing Roth conversions early in retirement increases your sequence of returns risk. That's one point he makes. The second thing he says is, look, for a lot of folks, it's going to take at least 3 decades for a Roth conversion to pay off. And, you might put that you're going to live to 90 or 95 in some sort of retirement planning software, but most of us won't. So most of us won't even live long enough to enjoy the benefits of a Roth conversion. And then his third point is ultimately, look, it's just a gamble. It's an investing gamble to do a Roth conversion. And as you can tell from the title of his video, he's not a fan of it. And so I wanted to address these issues. I will tell you up front that I disagree with his conclusions. But you'll hear me out, hopefully. You can watch his video, and as always, you can make up your own mind. But I want to walk through why I believe what I do, because I think it's really important as you think through Roth conversions for yourself. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to first deal with the question of, do you really need to wait 30 years for a Roth conversion to pay off? Then with that, we can then look at, does it really increase our sequence of returns risk? I'll even use some retirement planning software to show you that. And then finally, I'll look at, is a Roth conversion really just an investment gamble that likely won't pay off? So that's what we're going to do. And so the first question, do we need to wait 30 years or some other relatively long period of time for Roth conversions to pay off? I don't think so. Let me show you the whiteboard. I think this is the easiest way to do it. So let's imagine we've got a traditional IRA. That's a T for traditional. And it's got, we'll just put in, I'm going to try to make the math easy for me. We'll put in 40,000. And so we could do a Roth conversion. We're going to assume that taxes, state and federal, whatever the case may be, is 25%. So if we just converted all of this, let's imagine we're 60, we've just retired, we're not getting Social Security yet, and we decide to convert this. We would pay 10,000 of it in taxes, and we're going to assume, at least initially, that we're paying the taxes out of the IRA, out of this 40,000. So what would that leave us in a Roth? Well, pretty straightforward. We'd have $30,000. Okay. Now the question is, how long will it take this Roth conversion to pay off? And let's keep the period really short. Let's imagine we decide the next year we need the money. So if we'd left it in the traditional IRA, we'll assume a decent year, a good year of 10%. So we would have $44,000 if we left it in the IRA, and we'll assume the same kind of investments in a Roth. So 10% would be $3,000. So we'd have $33,000. Of course, this is after tax, or we don't have to pay tax on that, but we still have to pay our 25% tax on the $44,000, which happens to be $11,000. So if you subtract the 11 grand, what do you end up with? $33,000. The exact same number, and we've only waited a year. Now, at this point, you may say, well, wait a minute, Rob. It was a wash. There was no winner or loser there. Well, fair enough. I generally view Roth conversion is a lot like I do baseball. In baseball, a tie goes to the runner. If the first baseman catches the ball and the runner tags the base at the exact same time, the runner's safe. I kind of view Roth conversions the same way. If it's a tie, it goes to the Roth. Why? Well, I don't have required minimum distributions to deal with, number one. I can pull the money out whenever I want to. The government can't tell me when to do it, and I kind of like that. And it just sort of makes planning a lot easier because you don't have to sort of factor in, okay, how much is this going to be taxes? And so to me, a tie goes to the Roth conversion. But the bigger point is we didn't have to wait some period of time. It's the exact same after-tax amount of money. Now, what if we waited 30 years? And let's say in that time, our money doubled 3 times. That would be an annual rate of return of around 7%. So in that case, our 40,000 would go to what? 40 to 80, 80 to 160. and 160 to, I think, 320,000, if I've done the math right, over 30 years. And then in comparison, if we'd done the conversion, our 30 goes what? From 30 to 60, 60 to 120, 120 to 240. Of course, this is tax-free. And sure enough, if we take the 25% out of this, what's it get us? This exact same number. So time is totally irrelevant. Now here you might be saying, well, wait a minute, Rob. You're assuming the tax rates never change. What if they go up or they go down? Well, that's really the point, right? We can come back to this. Yeah. If, there we go. If the taxes, when we did the Roth conversion, were lower than they would be if we didn't do the conversion and took the money out, say, 30 years later or 1 year later, yeah, I mean, the Roth conversion paid off, right? And if it's the other way around, then the Roth conversion wouldn't pay off. It all comes down to tax rates. And that's really the point. It has absolutely nothing to do with time. I don't care if it's 1 year, like we assumed here, or 30 years, like we assumed here. If the rates are the same, the numbers on an after-tax basis come out to be identical. And if tax rates go up, we will have been thrilled that we did the Roth conversion. If tax rates go down, we would have either wished we didn't do the Roth conversion, potentially, there's a caveat to that in a minute, or we'd be grateful that we didn't, right? And of course, tax rates can change because, as they did this year, the federal government, a new tax law comes out and they make changes. Same thing can happen to state income tax, but also our own personal situation, right? We could be married filing jointly now and single down the road, or the other way around. So we could have more income than we expected or less income. We could move from a high tax state to a no tax state or the other way around. But all of those issues, and they're important and things we should consider before doing a Roth conversion, they have nothing to do with time. It has nothing to do with waiting 30 years. It's got nothing to do with time. And in fact, time can only make a Roth conversion better. It can never make it worse, not really. Now, again, in the hypothetical we just looked at, time was irrelevant. Let me show you an example of where time can matter. And it's very similar to what we looked at. We've got our traditional IRA. Again, same 40,000. Oops, there we go. But this time, let's imagine we've also got a taxable account. And we've got 10,000 in it in a checking account. And so now our choice is to leave this alone, right? Just leave this the way it is. Or we can do a Roth conversion. And the way we would do it is we'd convert all 40,000. So we'd put $40,000 in the Roth. And we'd pay the taxes out of the taxable account. So our taxable account, whoops, here we go. I can't spell. Goes to zero if we do the conversion. So how can we compare these? Well, again, we could look at 1 year. We could look at 10 years. I will tell you that in this scenario where you pay the taxes out of the taxable account, time matters in this sense. The longer the money stays in the Roth, the better you do. Now, why is that? Let's first talk about conceptually why that's the case, and then I will show you the math. It's because when we compare these two, right, we've got 10,000 in this taxable account, but with the Roth conversion, that's zero, and by paying the tax out of the taxable account, it allows us to take the full 40,000 and put it in the Roth. Remember in the previous example, we only had 30,000 in the Roth because we paid the taxes out of the IRA. So this effectively allows us to take the 10,000 that was in the taxable account and move it over to the Roth. And a Roth is tax efficient. It grows tax-free, and you follow all the rules, you take it out tax-free. A taxable account, as we all know, doesn't work that way. First of all, you'll pay tax on any dividends and interest you earn each year. And then down the road, if you take the money out, you're going to have to pay, presumably, unless you're in a 0% capital gains bracket, you're going to have to pay capital gains tax. And so conceptually, that's why over time, this actually gets better and better for the Roth. In fact, you can have situations where your tax rate is a bit lower at the time of the conversion than it is down the road when you take the money out, and the Roth conversion can still turn out to pay off because of this benefit of moving this money out of a taxable account and into the Roth. But again, that's only making the Roth conversion better. You don't have to wait some period of time before it pays off. In this case, I'll just show you 10 years. And let's imagine all our money doubles. So that, again, that would be about a 7% annual return. So our IRA would go to 80 grand. Our taxable account, I'm going to assume it goes to 20. I'm assuming we invest this all the same way. But the reason that's an assumption is, remember, we have to pay taxes on the dividends and interest each year. Even if you're in a low-cost, tax-efficient, say, Vanguard stock index fund, you're still paying taxes on dividends each year. So your money would actually be less than $20,000. But to keep things simple, we'll just put it all in there. And then our Roth, of course, goes to $80,000, right? We know that, and that's tax-free. So what's it look like then if we spend all this money? Well, we got to pay 25%, right? That's our tax bracket. So this goes to $60,000. Now, for the capital gains, I'm going to assume 20%, 15% capital gains and 5% state income tax. Obviously, your situation could and likely is different depending on where you live and your income. So you'll need to figure that out for yourself. But it's 20% only on the gain. So the gain was 10 grand. So 20% of 10 grand is 2 grand, right? So we paid $2,000 in taxes. We're left with $18,000. So that equals what? $78,000. So after just 10 years, we're actually better off. Not only are we better off, but we don't have to worry about RMDs, as I said before. And this is all tax-free. It's much easier to plan. So yeah, you don't have to wait 30 years or any length of time. And that's the thing to keep in mind. At the end of the day, the most important question is, what's your tax rate going to be now? And what will it be if you don't do a conversion and you take the money out, let's say, when required minimum distributions start or at some point in the future? And we'll talk about that again when we get back to, is a Roth conversion just a gamble? Because there's no way to know for sure, right, what your tax situation is going to be, at least most of the time. But point one, yeah, I don't agree that you have to wait 30 years for a Roth conversion to pay off. I don't think that's how they work. I don't think that's the math. Now, we can now go to sequence of returns risk. And for that, I need a whole new page. Okay, here's how I like to think about this from a sequence of returns risk perspective. On the surface, I think the argument makes a lot of sense. After all, we're paying much more in taxes. I mean, we're just assuming for the IRA, we're assuming 40,000. I can't even spell here. But you could imagine a lot more than that, right? Maybe you're doing 40,000 a year. And if whether you're paying the tax out of the IRA or the taxable account, in this hypothetical, that's 10 grand a year. Let's say for the first 5 years of retirement or whatever, first 3 or whatever it might be, that's a lot of money. And your withdrawal rate's going to be higher. And isn't this the time when we should be most concerned about a market drop or high inflation or both? Isn't that really the heart and soul of sequence of returns risk? But I think we can look at this a little differently. We can take this 40,000, we can divide it up, and we can say, well, 30,000 of it, again, I'm assuming a 25% tax bracket, it belongs to us. That's ours, right? We own this. This is our asset, belongs to us. And 10,000 belongs to the government. Now, we don't have to pay it until we take the money out. So we might not have to pay it for a long time, but it does belong to the government. Trust me, they're going to get their money in this life or the next. I mean, it could be in your lifetime or it could be in your children's lifetime. Of course, yes, you could give money to charity, and that's important. That's an important factor when thinking through Roth conversions. But for our purposes, we're going to assume that's not the case. 10,000 is not ours. And if this goes up, if let's say we double after 10 years, well, we've got 60,000 on an after-tax basis, and the government has 20, right? It's the government's money. That's just the way it works. And so if we decide that to carve this out now and give this to the government, give this to Uncle Sam and the state government by doing a Roth conversion, whether it's year one and it's 30,000, or I guess it would be 40,000, or it's after 10 years and we're converting 80,000 and paying 20, it doesn't matter. From a math perspective, this is the government's money. We're just deciding when to give it to them. And which is, by the way, a great option to have, because we get to choose when we think it makes the most sense. But it will not increase our sequence of returns risk because we never had this money to begin with, right? We could never spend this money on anything but taxes. That was it. That was our choice. Yes, it's nice to look at your account and see a bigger number. I get it. And when you imagine paying the tax, yeah, that hurts. I get it. And maybe you'll choose not to do it. That's fine. I'm not here to convince you should do a Roth conversion. But this money coming out of our account in year 1, year 3, year 5, year 10 doesn't change our sequence of returns risk at all. Keep in mind that when we think about something like the 4% rule and we read the papers on it, they're almost ignoring taxes. But if you can take $40,000 out of a traditional IRA, from that $40,000, I'm assuming $1 million portfolio, you'll have to pay the taxes on it, right? If you say, well, I'm going to take out $55,000 and pay $15,000 in taxes and spend $40,000, okay, and that might be a good plan, but you're at a 5.5% withdrawal rate, and you have to factor in taxes when you're pulling money out of an account, and it's part of the withdrawal. Here, yes, we're pulling out more than we need to, but all we're doing is choosing to give the government its money now versus 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years from now. Now, the math can get complicated in this scenario because we're looking at a long period of time. So, to help out, let's look at ProjectionLab. In this account, this is a demo account, and it's a married couple. They're both 60. They've got a Roth IRA of $100,000. They've got a 401k that we can convert of $2 million, and they have taxable investments of $500,000. And if we go to their base plan, here it is, and we can look at the chance of success. Let me rerun it. Now it's 85. We'll call it 85%, and I am using historical data, right? That's what I'm using for their chance of success. So in fact, we could come down here and look at all these trials that it's running. This trial failed. From 1928 to 1949, it failed in the middle. Of course, that was the stock market crash and the Great Depression. But 85% of the time, it succeeded. Okay. Now let's imagine we'll do some Roth conversions. If Roth conversions really create this sequence of returns risk, really elevate it, we should see this number go up, right? Because I'm gonna do some conversions at the start of their retirement. So we're gonna turn on the what if engine, as I like to call it. And then how do you do a Roth conversion in ProjectionLab? You go to the account. So in this case, it's the 401k. Remember, we have this $2 million balance. We're going to go down to Roth conversions, right? Here they are. We have to toggle them on. And then we can pick what we want to do. So I don't think we want to do it for 13 years. We'll do it for 5. 5 years. Whoops, let me try that again. There we go. And we'll do, they all have $40,000 each year. So that's fine. We don't have to actually put each year in. You can see across the line, it's $40,000 for all 5 years. And we'll save that, and you'll see some things change here, right? We're going to be paying more in taxes here, which is the whole point, right? Less in taxes here, and we can run the chance of success. There we go, 85. It's the same thing. It's 85%. Now, in this case, given the amount that I was converting, the tax rates, it's probably going to work out to be roughly a wash. Again, I think the tie goes to the Roth. But what if we said, well, let's get crazy. Let's go back to the plan, and rather than converting $40,000 a year, where are we here? Roth conversion. We're going to edit this. Let's do the full 80. We set the max up here. We could set it higher, but boy, 80,000. That's a lot of money every year for 5 years. Let's get this all set up. There it is. So we got our 80,000 right across there. So we saw the numbers here jump up, the taxes, and we see now a lot less, basically almost zero. I mean, it's, so as a practical matter, this might not be a great plan. It might be too heavily weighted to the start of the retirement. But again, for tax reasons, sequence of returns risk, still that's 85%. It's really not changing anything. And we could use a Monte Carlo scenario if we wanted to, but it's not going to change anything. And in fact, the trials that fail, they still fail. It's basically the same thing. It's mainly around the Great Depression, around the high inflation and bad markets of the 70s, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it really doesn't affect the sequence of returns risk, in my view, at all, because again, you're taking money that was never yours to begin with, or it was, but you could only spend it on one thing, taxes, and you're deciding to give it to Uncle Sam now versus later. And if you wait till later, assuming your balances have gone up, the tax will go up, right? If it's, again, the same tax rate, but it doesn't change the sequence of returns risk, which at the end of the day comes down to your after-tax spending. Now, it would be different, by the way, if it was $10,000 to pay the taxes now, or 15 years from now, you could pay $10,000, even if your balances went up. The amount you owed was fixed at $10,000. Well, yeah, we'd want to wait as long as we could. Then we'd want to discount. We want to look at the discount rates and delay as long as we could. But of course, that's not how taxes work. So, in my view, it doesn't increase the sequence of returns risk. Now, again, that doesn't mean that a Roth conversion is right for you. There's a lot of analysis that has to go into it. But you don't have to wait 30 years, in my view, and it's not going to increase your sequence of returns risk, which gets me to the third point. Is this just a big gamble, and you never know how it's going to pay off? And here, I don't think it's a gamble either, at least not in any meaningful way. It's true, we have to think through what will our taxes be, and that's going to require us to make some assumptions. Is our marital status going to change? Will one spouse die early? Do we want to give money to charity? Will we move to a lower or higher tax state? Will the federal tax laws change in a significant way? All really important questions. And you could say, well, Rob, isn't that really, that's the gamble. You're gambling that those are all going to work out in a certain way that makes the Roth conversion better. Perhaps, but if you choose not to do a Roth conversion, you're gambling that all of those things are going to work out in such a way that a Roth conversion wouldn't have been a good deal. Yeah, so at some point we just have to make our best educated decision. I do think there are plenty of circumstances where the Roth conversion really makes really good sense, particularly in early retirement, before you have to worry about IRMA charges for Medicare and before you're taking Social Security, but after you've quit work, where you could have really low income tax. That could be an ideal time to do Roth conversions, which is really the heart of this whole sequence of returns risk concern. It's actually the best time to do Roth conversions under those circumstances. So there you go. That's my take. Again, I'll link to Eric's video below this one. Listen to what he says about it, and you, of course, make up your own decision. But I feel fairly strongly about my views on this. But if you've got a different perspective, I do want to hear about it. So leave comments below the video and you tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me what I've missed. I really do want to hear that. And then, of course, I'll always update my own thinking as new information comes in. But that's my current thinking. Hopefully you found this helpful. And of course, as I said, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And until next time, remember, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom.